As we take a look at the positive stuff, and I try to get used to that picture of Nick Carboni seductively looking at Doug on my screen.
He's looking at me.
Yeah, I know he is. Yeah, watch out.
Wait, wrong way.
Yeah, watch out. I don't know who he's making a phone call to. Yeah, there you go. Screenshot that. I want anybody watching on their phone to screenshot that picture of Doug looking at Nick. What were the positive stuff, Nick? What's the a few of the things you think of at the top when you think, oh, yeah, that is something that worked out for the Hornets this season?
I'll start with an individual and talk about LaMelo Ball. You're always worried about that sophomore slump, about kind of the game catching up to him, especially after he didn't play college basketball. He came in and had a tremendous rookie year, obviously, but then you're worried about what that next step will look like and when that will come. And I thought it came pretty immediately. In terms of some of the things he was able to do early in the season, and then post All-Star break, when kind of handed the keys a little more, especially in big moments. I thought he did really, really well with it. He just seems to be progressing and trending upwards still, which is great to see. Obviously, the play-in game kind of, puts a little bit of a damper on that for now. He did not play well in that moment, but neither did the entire team. So I think LaMelo Ball for me is number one, because as he goes, that's how your franchise goes in this quote unquote window of opportunity to make the playoffs and make noise in the playoffs. I think he's still on the right track and still going up.
Yeah, I mean, number one for me is LaMelo Ball. Absolutely. I mean, he turned into an all-star player and is on his way to becoming a superstar player. His usage went up this season, and it really hasn't peaked. Like, there's more minutes that he can get and more usage that he can get as he progresses with this team. And I know a lot of people were unhappy with some of his minutes this season, but I think they're due to go up next season. Points per shot attempt went way up. Assist percentage went way up. All of those metrics that you use to judge an offensive player, he just skyrocketed in his second year. And in terms of, like, we didn't really talk about LaMelo and what went wrong, but, he's got some things to clean up defensively. He got into too much foul trouble. But I think the things that he has to clean up are generally easier to clean up than like a broken jump shot or something, which his jump shot is not broken. He went through a little bit of a shooting slump at one point this season, but he came right out of it, and he turned into a more clutch player than we saw in year one.
That's the thing that gets me so excited about LaMelo's career more than any. It's the fact that shot not only is fine, it's good. I just can't believe that he's a legitimately really good three-point shooter. And Nick, you mentioned the sophomore slump stuff. Like, I thought about that coming into the season too, and it's a good point. I was looking up some stats of some of the other stars that we have in our league, and maybe a second year that didn't quite go on the escalator many people thought. Ja Morant is one. Now he flirted with an MVP conversation point. He's not there now, but clearly an excellent season for him. And you look last year, he increased his points per game by almost a couple in his sophomore year, but his percentage points went down inside and outside the arc. That's somebody that maybe didn't have the type of trajectory that he did in his rookie season. And then boom, I mean, just what a phenomenal season. You kind of go to Jason Tatum too. There were some people a little worried about his trajectory. He increased his points per game as well, but his efficiency went down inside and outside the arc. And it's like, all right, we'll see if he can get back on that all-star track. That just didn't really happen with LaMelo. You had the 1 month, or maybe it was even shorter than that, where he struggled a little bit. But other than that, to start the season, he was fantastic. To end the season, he was fantastic. So LaMelo avoiding that, getting an all-star nod, deserving that, playing better post all-star break after he got past that little bit of a struggle. Like, he was awesome to end the season. So that's fantastic. And then I would think LaMelo's number one. I would think a pretty close second is the emergence of Miles Bridges, because as important as it is to have your lead dog, it's number one for sure. But if you're going to look at a team contending in the Eastern Conference playoffs, winning a playoff series and just getting beyond that, you also need that second banana. And Miles Bridges emerging to be that guy, to at least potentially be that guy, you could argue it's actually a detriment, because he's going to get a lot more money and need a lot more of your cap space. That's actually going to work against the Hornets payroll. That sucks. But the fact that Miles has that within him, if the three-point shot can come along, he's going to be that much more unstoppable. I think Miles has to be second, Nick. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree too. And obviously he won the bet on Miles Bridges, and they're going to pay for it. And I think they're going to have to. I mean, keeping that core together, like you said, those two players together is how they're doing this. They're not doing this by bringing in high price free agents left and right and making the moves for the top superstars. They're trying to grow their superstars, and they've done a good job of growing two of them here at home. Maybe not two superstars, but one potential superstar and one potential all-star is a really good place to be right now if you're the Charlotte Hornets, and they're both obviously still very, very young. So that is promising, and that is certainly something that when you talk about James Borrego, yes, we talked about how bad the defense was, but in terms of internally developing these players, you've got to give him some credit there, and you've got to give these players credit. I mean, Miles Bridges came out with moves this year that I hadn't even seen flashes of last year. I mean, some of the finishes he made, obviously the 3-point shooting needs to be better, but some of the things he did this year, as James Borrego put it to us, caught a lot of people in the building by surprise. And I think Miles Bridges took pride in that. And I can only see him working just as hard, if not harder, to get better under this new contract, whatever it is.
Yeah, Nick, you also have to credit Terry Rozier, who is on my list of things that went right this season. He brought everyone together in the offseason and really, I think, helped foster that core and that internal development. I don't know if Terry Rozier is long for this organization, because I think he's played well enough that he could be someone that if you needed a little bit more financial flexibility, that is movable, because his clutch offense is just off the charts. He's a certified gamer. He got the certificate this year. I sent it through the mail, first class, post office. Certified gamer. So many moments this season, he was the guy, put the ball in his hands, and he went and knocked down multiple shots in the fourth quarter to either extend a lead or get a lead in the fourth quarter. Just loved watching Terry play this season, and I think he, whether he's with the organization next season or not, I think he will hold a special place in my heart for bringing this core together.
What do you think, Nick? Is Terry something that went right for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. He signed a fairly healthy contract extension and for the most part lived up to it, I think. I mean, I don't think anybody expects Terry to be a perennial all-star, but he's a guy that came in and there were a lot of questions about him since day one, and he's answered them along the way and has shown leadership for this team too. And I think he's somebody that I see, putting a lot of effort, on both ends of the floor. He might not be the best defender, obviously, but I feel like he brings the energy to this team just about every night he's on the floor, and he might be expendable and he might have to go, or he might have to be conversed about in those conversations, but he's done a lot for this franchise in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Terry, we can get to this when we do the player capsules and stuff, but him being a leader, him kind of being a friend and leader with these guys, being someone, when you heard him talk at the end of the season, his exit interview was all about wanting those younger players, his younger brothers, as he called them, trying to get them to the playoffs. He wanted it for them badly. And I think that's cool. And one thing I'll say that went right with Terry as well, there was a real threat that the 2-point percentage the year prior was an outlier. Did it again this year, which is awesome, right? Like that was a real scare. And he came back, hit his mid-range quite a bit, had some nice moves inside the 3-point line. So I was really happy to see that.
And I don't think we saw the second half of the year fade like we did last season. And I think credit to LaMelo, for taking some more responsibility this season for the offense. So Terry probably had a little bit more obviously disappointing performance in the play-in, but through the, back half of the season, I thought it wasn't as big of a slide. We can't get out of this segment without talking about PJ Washington, because a lot went right for him in a year where a lot
changed. And it's
changed.
funny because that's really polarizing for people. I completely
watch the
agree
games.
with you.
I mean, watch the games.
I am wholeheartedly.
He was better offensively in less minutes. He did eventually regain a starting role, but played a majority of this season on the bench after being a starter for a lot of the previous season. But his points per shot attempt went way up. He was much better offensively, I thought. But then really it's all about defense. In a year where a lot of people did not buy into defense, did not engage on that end of the floor, PJ Washington consistently playing out of position, playing the small ball 5 where he had to work a lot harder to guard guys like Giannis and Embiid. And he stepped up to the challenge and typically knocked it out of the park. I mean, I would honestly, it would be tough for, like, I got to go Miles Bridges 2, but I would say PJ strong 3 for me, maybe even like right there 2A, 2B.
Yeah, I got to go with a pretty secure 3, even for my love of PJ. That's going to be a hard player to see leave this organization if it happens, and it's very real. I'm going to hate it. Because
are you going to hate it, Nick? How much are you going to hate it?
I mean, if you value what you're talking about, you definitely hate it, because he was their closeout defender, really the only one they had this year. I mean, his work started on night 1 against Domantas Sabonis, guarding him and forcing him into a tough shot to seal that victory. And he did it several more times throughout the season. I remember him on Jokic at the end of that game. Yeah. In that game, he had the offense too.
He guarded Jimmy Butler. He had a huge defensive
Kyle Lowry,
in a game they lost.
Kyrie Irving. Like, he's guarding point guards. Yeah.
I think I'm talking you into it. I'm talking you into 2B.
You're right. It's 2. It's sold.
Yeah!
PJ Washington. He's the second best positive. And the last thing on him, the biggest problem with him offensively last year was the fact that he could not finish inside. Just couldn't do it. It was a real problem trying to finish amongst the trees. And his efficiency overall goes up. Even if there's a little bit of a dip from shooting from 3-point land, he shot over 60% inside the arc. He shot 48% the year prior. That's not good for a 5. And the fact that it went up a whole more than 10 percentage points, that's the thing you love to see. His turnovers went significantly down and his assists stayed relatively the same. Like, taking the right shots. Yeah, PJ improved, man. I team keep PJ, and hopefully they can find a way to do it beyond the season, because they don't have to extend him. You know, they can keep him, but I just don't know if they're going to try to trade him so they don't lose him for nothing.